Hey, the Resistance! What's up? It's the Culture Detective here, investigating your favorite movies. And today I'm going to be doing a movie review on the new movie Asteroid City by Wes Anderson. So, yeah, about I'd say 7 hours ago, I went to the cinemas, AMC, with my good friend Thomas and Liam to watch Asteroid City by Wes Anderson. And this is actually the first time I've ever watched a Wes Anderson film on the big screen. I actually never got the chance to do that back in Hong Kong, even though the chance was probably possible to do it back in Hong Kong. I just never really had the chance to. But anyways, this is my first time watching a Wes Anderson film on a big screen and in AMC. And here are my thoughts. So Wes Anderson, if you're a guy who's into movies, you don't even have to be a hardcore cinephile. You have probably heard of the guy. The guy is one of the most stylish, artistic, quirky, eccentric, yet successful directors working now to date across the world, well known. And of course, we can trace all the way back to his previous films, and out of the movies he's made, I've enjoyed pretty much all of them. I really loved Rushmore. Fantastic Mr. Fox is one of the greatest animated films of all times, in my opinion. The Grand Budapest Hotel is the first film I've seen from the guy, and it is so stylish and artistic. It really opened up what I thought cinema was capable of. Isle of Dogs is another stop motion movie, albeit not as focused as Fantastic Mr. Fox, but is still incredibly cutesy, tight, snappy, and witty. And then, of course, last year, or actually 2 years ago, but I watched it last year in January, The French Dispatch is easily the most Wes Anderson film Wes Anderson has ever made. Every single shot, the toyish colors, the symmetry, the deadpan, cartoony dialogues, the jumbled sequencing of the film, the ever changing aspect ratios, the plucky guitars and music. Yeah, the French Dispatch is definitely an experience, and it is a little bit polarizing because yes, it is more style than substance, but I think, in my opinion, the style served the substance so frickin' well because essentially the French Dispatch is a magazine in cinematic form, and it's so well done that I ended up enjoying it like a lot. So, anyways, as you can probably tell, Wes Anderson films get more and more stylish and more gimmicky. And I don't mean this in a bad way, but they get more and more gimmicky as he makes more movies and he sort of leans into his style more, just like many other directors do. And his films also become less and less straightforward, more and more, I guess you could say, art house as it goes along, and it makes less and less sense. So it's obvious that films like Asteroid City, years down the road, would be considered a deep cut in Wes Anderson's filmography, because I feel like films like Asteroid City are made for the hardcore Wes Anderson fans, the Wes heads. I don't know what his fandom name is. Uh, but yeah, it is very much a film made for Wes Anderson fans. My friend Thomas has never seen a single Wes Anderson film. He watched it, and I can hear him sighing, face palming in the middle of the movie like 12 times because he's totally not used to the style at all and he thought that it was extremely boring. And then to my right, there was a 9-year-old kid, and in one of the scenes, I guess it's kind of a spoiler, but not really. In one of the scenes, an alien comes down from the sky, and the 9-year-old kid next to me audibly said, "What the fuck?" So that was an interesting viewing experience. And then somewhere behind me, so minor spoilers, but Scarlett Johansson has maybe half a second of nudity, and there was a guy a little bit behind me, like a couple rows behind me, and he was like, "Ooh!" So even the audience itself becomes very Wes Anderson-ish, which says a lot about his art. You know, it just transcends through the silver screen. But anyways, Asteroid City is sort of a story within a story. It is about a group of people stuck in a small town by the name of Asteroid City. It's literally in the middle of nowhere, and one day an alien comes down from a UFO, and everyone is quarantined, and they're just stuck there. And it's like an ensemble cast, and the cast of this movie, it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. We have everyone from Jason Schwartzman, Scarlett Johansson, Tom Hanks, Jeffrey Wright, Tilda Swinton, Bryan Cranston, Edward Norton, Adrian Brody, Liev Schreiber, Hope Davis, Stephen Park, Maya Hawke, Steve Carell, Hong Chow, Willem Dafoe had like 5 lines, Margot Robbie had like 4 lines, Jeff Goldblum has 1 line in this thing, and there's so many more that I didn't mention, but yeah, there are a lot of stars in this movie. So yeah, this is absolutely insanely stacked cast, and there are a lot of characters in this movie. It's a cast ensemble type movie, a la Do the Right Thing. Except one flaw I think this movie has is that none of these storylines really interest me. Of course, you get the dynamic between Scarlett Johansson and Jason Schwartzman, which is in the center of the whole thing. And their interactions are pretty cute, but they do not necessarily hook me in or anything. And then there are these Brainiac storylines, a bunch of kids trying to work together to secretly solve the mystery of the alien and tell the whole world about the alien. And we barely see this storyline develop. We just see a scene and then another scene that confirms that, and then that's pretty much it. So that's that. Now, all that is happening, but that is actually a plot within a plot, because the bigger plot is that the writer, played by Edward Norton, wrote this play. He wrote Asteroid City, and it's sort of like a collaboration with Adrian Brody. And this outer plot takes up maybe about 1/8 of the entire film, and it's scattered all across the colored scenes. So all the scenes with color with a wide aspect ratio, they are all, Asteroid City. And then the scenes with the cropped black and white aspect ratio, that is actually the outer plot, the making of Asteroid City. And every time it jumps back from color to black and white, it was a little bit, I wouldn't say annoying, but a few times it was like, oh, this again. And it took me a while to really understand what these black and white sequences really mean. I know that they are a commentary on the making of Asteroid City, but sometimes they don't even feel that relevant. Like, there's a scene where Edward Norton and Jason Schwartzman, as the actor for the main character, really talk, and then they make out, and they talked about putting a hand on a grill, and I didn't really know what it means until in Act 3 when the character actually does that, which is pretty interesting, but I'll talk about that a little bit later, I guess. One thing for sure is that Act 1 is incredibly long and kind of cumbersome, in my opinion. And yes, it's building up with all these storylines, and it starts off interesting for sure, but it doesn't really deliver. All these storylines sort of start and they sort of fizzle, and they don't really turn into anything all that interesting. However, Acts 2 and 3 are way better and more interesting, especially after the alien comes down. There is more of a theme, more of an overarching theme going on in the story. But once again, the black and white sequences sort of bog down the pacing of the film, which makes it kind of clunky here and there. At some points, the black and white sequences end up being really entertaining, where all these dots sort of start connecting and you start to be able to understand what's really going on. When Willem Dafoe showed up, he stole the whole scene, and that was one of my favorite scenes of the entire film. And I have to admit, some scenes are really funny, or at least made me chuckle a little bit. Tilda Swinton always manages to do that. She's just naturally funny if she wants to. And again, Willem Dafoe is extremely funny. When the alien arrives, the absurdity is really funny, and I guess the funniest parts are really the Brainiacs scenes, a bunch of kids who talk like adults and they're just too smart for their own good, and their silly, goofy little inventions. I think the scene the shot that made me laugh the hardest was when Jason Schwartzman's character's son put an American flag on a moon in a projection, and then he pointed upwards and the camera pans up to the moon and you can see the American flag on the actual moon. That was so ridiculous. But aside from that, I think the best part about this film is the color grading. The sky is so perfectly aquamarine blue. It really has that negative color film look. And the color grading is beautiful, maybe too beautiful, because sometimes you can see that the faces of characters, the skin color is too red. And then in the black and white sequences, even though it's black and white, the faces are bluish, while the eyeball is pure, like the white part of the eyeball. What's the actual word for it? The retina? No, not retina. The scleris is pure white. And so it's clear that they made red more blue in the black and white. And there's no red in the eye, but there's red in the skin color. So there's that thing that was sort of distracting for me. But aside from that, I think the dolly work and the pans are all freaking amazing. This film has some of the most complicated dolly work I've seen in cinematic history. Like there are shots, there are long takes where a camera does this and then moves backwards and then changes and moves this way and then moves like diagonally and goes up and down and tilts up and tilts down, and it's like, woo, that's woo. But overall, this film is a film about film. It's a commentary on art, and I really appreciate that. I think it's a really interesting direction that Wes Anderson went to, particularly the climax scene of the film where everyone's chanting, "You can't wake up if you don't fall asleep," sort of echoes back to Adrian Brody storming into the room and saying, Act 1 is kind of boring and I kind of fell asleep. And I guess that is basically Wes Anderson giving a middle finger to conventional storytelling and say that, hey, a good film won't shock you or hook you if it doesn't make you feel bored a little bit, essentially. That's how I interpret it, at least. But as a film that is a commentary on art and the making of art itself, I can name several films I've seen before that do that, but does it even better. Funny Games, Adaptation, Close Up, Pastoral, To Die in the Country. So yeah, I wouldn't say this film is that great, and I wouldn't say the first half is that captivating or anything, but it is a really interesting movie, an interesting watch, and I'm feeling a light to decent 7 out of 10. So if you watch Asteroid City, comments below, let me know, subscribe if you want more, and thanks for watching.